Hi and welcome to another episode of the Metal Verbalizers podcast. We listen to a lot of underground metal and we pick some of the underground bands we really like and then we make episodes about them. Because we want to share the great music that we find with you and we want to support these underground bands. These episodes are meant to be a type of introduction to these bands. When someone mentions a new band, you might ask them to tell you more about the band, and that's exactly what I'm going to do throughout this episode. I am Johan Verbalizer, and this episode will be dedicated to the band Carnosus. Carnosus is a death metal band originating from the country of Sweden, and was started in the year 2011. Carnosus did, however, become significantly more active in 2015, in connection to when the band wrote the music for their debut EP, which they later released the year after in 2016. This is the point that the band recognizes as when Carnosus started to really work as an active band. When it comes to the influences of Carnosus, the band as a whole is very influenced by bands such as Revocation, the Black Dahlia Murder, and Rivers of Nile. But each member also has their individual influences that affect the sound, and what they're doing as part of Carnosus. These individual references, to give a few examples, range from stuff like Dream Theater to things like Armageddon and Psychroptic, etc. As well as things like depressive black metal and deathcore to things like even jazz and classical music. The band believe that these influences are quite prominent in their sound. I am personally not really that experienced or into classical music and jazz necessarily, even though I like some of it. But for those who know more about these music styles, can probably hear these influences as well pretty prominently. The name of the band comes from the Latin word Carnosus, which means something like fleshy or something like that. And the band feels that this describes very well the type of music that they wanted to play and, of course, now are also playing right now. So they decide to use this word as the name of the band. Oh, and by the way, I'm aware that I pronounced the Latin word like Carnosus, but the band's name more like Carnosus, which is clearly a more English sounding pronunciation. I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure how the band members themselves would pronounce their name, but we talk English on the podcast in general, so the more English sounding pronunciation makes sense to me. So that's what I will use throughout this episode, but I guess some pronunciation more like Carnosus, probably a little bit closer to the Latin pronunciation. But anyway, the band's logo was created by a friend of the band. The only actual request that Carnosus had was that they wanted a logo that you can easily read. The band thinks that it's very funny to look at a poster with 80% bands that are playing like slam, with logos that, let's be honest, that you can't read. Then seeing their own logo in the middle of that, which you can very easily read. And that is something that has literally happened, by the way. That's not just something that I just came up with. Kind of like 80% slam bands with those kind of logos, and then in the middle of that, Carnosus logo. I don't know. I can kind of see that in front of me, I believe, and yeah, it definitely kind of I believe that would definitely catch my attention if I saw a logo like that on that type of poster. So definitely a very, very smart move in that sense. And I mean, obviously I think that the Carnosus logo looks great in general. And yeah, again, like a pretty smart move in this sense, I believe. Something that I believe is really cool is that the album art of Carnosus were made as oil paintings and acrylic paintings by actual painters. So the album arts weren't only made in a digital way, they were actually painted on a canvas, which is something the band members tend to prefer when it comes to album art. When it comes to the art itself, the band designed it together with the painter, with a kind of like approach that parts of the artwork is kind of like meant to symbolize some of the lyrics from the songs on the album. Which, I mean, the kind of like idea about having like actual paintings like that is something I think is very interesting and something very, very cool. I don't know, it's like kind of hard to explain it, I guess, but it just something about it that just feels very like very real and very cool. And I think I've kind of like talked about this a little bit earlier in previous episodes, but also the kind of like idea about having the kind of like artwork with like references and like parts of it kind of like symbolizes parts of the lyrics, and that kind of like that type of connection between lyrics and artwork, and maybe also to a certain degree the band name or the album name. Those kind of connections is something that I'm a huge fan of. I really, really like that when you have that kind of connection. So that's something that I'm obviously really, really into as well. Speaking of lyrics, by the way, the lyrics of Carnosus takes place in kind of like a fictional universe that the band has created. A universe where like a self-proclaimed dictator wants to repopulate Earth with a type of people poisoned by cadaverine. Dictator finds like old prophecies that he decides to follow, and then forces the people to reproduce in some form of like a grave chamber. so like it's like, yeah, like basically classic death metal silliness as the band themselves described it. But also, if you really start to kind of like properly analyze the lyrics, you'll quickly realize that there's a lot more to the lyrics than just that. They're trying to write a little bit more complicated lyrics than just simply, you know, the kind of like kill, murder, kill type lyrics. Like they want something a little bit more complicated than that. And the lyrics are very inspired by things like poetry and like storytelling. So a lot of people, poetry might not be the first thing that you think of when you think of like death metal, and it might not sound very death metal, but trust me, in this case, it is. It definitely is. The lyrics are also very influenced by the real world, of course, as well as things like dark fantasy, alchemy, etc. Carnosus has been pretty active over the years. They released a demo in 2015, an EP in 2016, several singles over the years, a full-length album titled Dogma of the Deceased in 2020, and a second full-length, The Visions of Infinity, in 2023. And for the future, Carnosus is currently working on their third full-length album. Unfortunately, I don't know any more details about it. I don't know what it will be called. I don't know when it will be released. And basically, unfortunately, I can't share you any more details about it because I don't know. But I would, however, definitely encourage you to both listen to the music that Carnosus currently have released, and also definitely keep your eyes open for this album, because I have a feeling that the upcoming album is going to be really great. So definitely keep your eyes open for that. And other than that, they are planning to do more gigs and more tours. So definitely keep your eyes open for that as well. If you get the opportunity to see Carnosus live, I would definitely take it, because I have a great feeling that Carnosus is really, really great live. So I would not miss the opportunity if you get it. I believe this is a good time to end the episode. Thank you very much for listening to this episode all the way to the end. If you enjoy the episodes we make, that would help us a lot if you like, comment and share the episodes. It is very encouraging to us, and it also technically helps the podcast to reach more people, because it affects the algorithms, which as a result also helps the bands we feature to reach more people. So this is a quick and easy way that you can support the podcast as well as underground metal in general. This is very important to us, so thank you. Now it's time to end this episode, but we will be back to Verbalize again next week.